The message came at 2:11 a.m. Thanks for the free business. I stared at the screen until the words burned through my skull. My fiancé's name at the top, a smirking emoji at the end. The restaurant, our restaurant, was supposed to open tomorrow. Months of sleepless nights, $250,000 in loans, and the ghost of every dream I'd ever sold to make it happen. Now, it was hers, legally, quietly. I tried to breathe, but my chest locked. Every line on the paperwork, every "trust me, babe," replayed like a cruel joke. I drove without thinking, past the empty streets, past the "coming soon" banner still hanging on the restaurant window. My name was gone from the glass. Only hers remained, painted gold. By the time I reached my father's house, dawn had begun bleeding into the sky. He opened the door, silent. He didn't ask why my hands were shaking. He just looked at me. The way men who've seen too much loss look when they recognize it again. Then he said, quietly, "Your mom wanted you to have this." He handed me a small brass key, old, worn, cold. A safety deposit box number etched into the tag. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. I just drove to the bank. And when I opened the box, I found something that changed everything. Inside were 3 envelopes. No note, no explanation, just my mother's handwriting on each, before, during, after. The first was a letter. She wrote it before she died, about how people show their real faces when money enters the room. How love built on convenience turns poisonous when tested. The second envelope held a thick file, bank statements, receipts, photos. My mother's old restaurant, the one she'd built with my father before it burned down, or so I'd been told. Except, it hadn't been arson. It had been stolen by her business partner. History repeating itself, decades later, wearing a different face but the same perfume. The last envelope had a USB drive. Curiosity overruled grief. On it, a single folder, time-stamped 6 months ago. My fiancé's name in the metadata, my mother's attorney's logo in the corner. The file was a trust deed, in my name, for the land the restaurant was built on. I sat there, in that sterile bank room, watching the world tilt. She thought she'd taken everything, but she didn't even own the ground beneath her feet. I went home that night and started my quiet war. No calls, no rage, just silence. I logged into her email. She'd never changed her passwords. Arrogance is louder than any confession. There they were, transfer confirmations, messages with her investor, and plans to rename the restaurant. Her lover would be the new head chef. I printed everything, every text, every receipt, every betrayal dressed as business. Meanwhile, she kept texting me, "Be mature about it. You'll find someone else." I didn't respond. I visited the bank again, verified the trust. She'd built her empire on sand. Mine. My name was the foundation, and without my signature, her ownership was paper thin. I filed the land deed under a new LLC, mine alone. Then I waited. Watched her post countdowns for opening day. Watched her smile in interviews. Watched her rehearse a lie so often it began to look like truth. Inside, I was still. Outside, I was calm. But beneath it all, something cold began to breathe. Opening day came. Flashbulbs, flowers, local press. She wore the dress I bought her for our engagement. I arrived unannounced. Not angry, just ready. When she saw me, she froze for half a second. Then smiled for the cameras. "Good to see you," she whispered, her voice sugar. I handed her an envelope. Inside, copies of the trust deed, the property documents, and the transfer evidence she'd signed without reading. She flipped through them, color draining from her face. The smile collapsed. Her lips trembled, but she tried to recover. "This doesn't mean anything." "It means," I said quietly, "you built your restaurant on my land." The cameras kept flashing. She realized what that meant before I had to explain it. Every dollar she'd stolen, every renovation, every piece of equipment belonged to me. Her hands shook. Mine didn't. That night I filed for eviction. Legally, methodically. No threats, no violence. The next morning, the locks were changed. Her name came down from the sign. By afternoon, her number was disconnected. I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, didn't answer when she called from unknown numbers. But I did one thing. I renamed the restaurant. After. Same name as my mother's last envelope. Same word she used to end her story. When the press asked what it meant, I told them it's a tribute. And it was, just not the way they thought. The night before reopening, I stood outside the building alone. The air smelled of burnt cedar and new beginnings. Inside, the tables gleamed. The kitchen hummed. No ghosts this time, just silence. I thought about her once more. The lies, the messages, the smile that hid a knife. And then I didn't. Because some stories don't end with forgiveness. They end with truth. And when the lights came on, I finally understood what my mother meant in her letter. Sometimes, the only way to rebuild is to let the fire finish what it started. So, I walked inside, locked the door behind me, and never looked back.